Hey friends, welcome back. We've spent a few episodes now talking about love, and here we are again. But we're going to see deeper into something we've touched on. In letter 20, the patient has learned that temptation loses its power when it's resisted instead of embraced. Every act of obedience strengthens holy habits. Sin becomes easier to resist because obedience becomes more natural. Wormwood can no longer convince him that giving in is somehow the quickest way past temptation, because years of sexual temptation have done something hell absolutely hates. They've built up spiritual endurance. So Screwtape admits that simple sexual indulgence probably isn't going to work anymore. Fine, if you can't get a Christian into bed, get him into the wrong marriage, and that may actually be even more destructive. Lewis indicates in this letter that hell rarely tries to destroy desire. Instead, it teaches us to desire the wrong things for the wrong reasons. Screwtape says that in every generation, through societal influences, hell carefully shapes what people consider sexually attractive. Think about that. If beauty were completely objective, fashion could never redefine it. Yet every generation has a different ideal. Lewis gives several examples from history. At one point, men admired regal, aristocratic women, not because they were particularly feminine, but because that image mixed sexual attraction with status and pride. Vanity became part of desire. Then taste shifted. Another generation celebrated an exaggerated femininity, where weakness, cowardice, and simple-mindedness became attractive. Then came another shift. Lewis points to the Jazz Age. Suddenly, the ideal woman became increasingly youthful, almost boyish. The closer adulthood resembled adolescence, the better. He notes something remarkable. When beauty is defined by youth itself, women begin to fear aging, not simply because they're getting older, but because they believe they're becoming less valuable. And if youth becomes the ultimate standard, motherhood itself begins to seem like the enemy. Pregnancy, childbirth, aging, they all become threats to beauty. Remember, Lewis wrote that nearly a century ago. Now look around. Today the images surrounding us are even more manufactured. Perfect lighting, perfect angles, perfect editing, filters, collagen treatments, Botox, fillers, plastic surgery. Many of the women we see through the screen and even compare our spouses to hardly resemble the images that reach our eyes. Today the images aren't just edited, they're delivered to us thousands of times a day by algorithms designed to keep us comparing. Notice the strategy. Hell doesn't merely redefine beauty, it keeps moving the goalposts. Every generation receives another impossible standard ensuring perpetual dissatisfaction. Lewis says that hell has learned to point men toward a beauty that doesn't actually exist, not because real women aren't beautiful, but because impossible standards create perpetual dissatisfaction. When perfection is fictional, gratitude becomes impossible, and where gratitude dies, covetousness flourishes. Now, physical appearance is only the surface. Lewis says there's a real battle that lies much deeper. Of course, both men and women are targets of the same deception, but because Screwtape's advice is directed toward a male patient, Lewis explores these temptations from a male perspective. He claims that in every man's heart, every man is haunted by at least two imaginary women. He calls them the terrestrial and the infernal Venuses. One is heavenly, one is infernal. The first reflects something that pleases God. She is charitable, gentle, honorable, faithful, and kind. She inspires a man toward sacrifice, toward protection, toward covenant, toward family, toward God. Lewis says a man may accidentally sin in wishing that she didn't already belong to another man, but what attracts him is still something genuinely beautiful. His desire has become misplaced, not fundamentally corrupted. The second Venus is entirely different. This woman is something quite different than what he would normally call beauty, something that, in a sane hour, the patient might even describe as ugliness. In this type, the felt evil is what he wants because of that tang in the flavor, that animality. She's attractive because she feels forbidden. Screwtape says men desire to desire her brutally. The corruption isn't only in the object of affection, it's in the heart itself. Cruelty becomes attractive. Manipulation becomes attractive. Promiscuity becomes attractive. Danger becomes attractive. The evil itself becomes part of the attraction. That's an incredible observation. The excitement isn't coming from love, it comes from rebellion. The darkness becomes part of the thrill. Instead of seeing a daughter of God, he sees a slave, an idol, or an accomplice. If he marries her, he won't truly love her. He'll either control her, worship her, or use her. None of those are biblical marriage. They're simply different forms of selfishness. Lewis says this infernal Venus is typically useful as a mistress or a prostitute. But when the man is a Christian, hell has an even better idea. Convince him that love conquers all. Tell him that chemistry matters more than character, that passion matters more than holiness, that compatibility with Christ can be ignored because he's following his heart. If hell succeeds, hell may lose in regards to fornication, but it gains decades of misery. A marriage built on rebellion often becomes a lifelong instrument of unhappiness. Screwtape states with a sickening chuckle, there is more than one way to use sexuality in bringing a man to his undoing. So how do we protect ourselves? We let God define beauty instead of culture. The Bible spends surprisingly little time describing physical appearance, but it spends enormous amounts of time describing character. God designed attraction to be more than physical. In Scripture, beauty and character were never meant to compete with one another. Physical beauty may draw your attention, but godly character is what should capture your heart. A marriage built only on appearance will eventually lose the very thing it was built upon. A marriage built on Christ grows more beautiful with time. Consider the Proverbs 31 woman. Notice what receives all the attention. She is trustworthy. She works diligently. She serves others. She's generous. She speaks wisdom. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She fears the Lord. Then comes one of the most countercultural verses in all of Scripture. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. That doesn't mean physical beauty is bad. God invented beauty. It means beauty was never supposed to carry the weight our culture places upon it. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 3 and 4 tell us, do not let your adorning be external, rather let your adorning be the hidden person of your heart. Outer beauty fades, character doesn't. Culture asks, is she exciting? God asks, is she faithful? Culture asks, does she turn heads? God asks, does she fear the Lord? Culture asks, will she satisfy your fantasies? God asks, will she help you become more like Christ? Those are entirely different questions, and they'll lead to entirely different marriages. Screwtape knows something many people don't. If hell can redefine beauty, it can redefine marriage. And if it can redefine marriage, it can quietly reshape an entire civilization. In this letter, Lewis reminds us that Satan rarely destroys God's gifts by attacking them directly. He corrupts them, he exaggerates them, he counterfeits them. Real beauty points us toward gratitude. Counterfeit beauty leaves us perpetually dissatisfied. Real love moves us toward sacrifice. Counterfeit love always bends back toward self. So the question isn't simply, what am I attracted to? The better question is, who taught me to desire what I desire? Because somebody did. And according to Lewis, hell has been trying to answer that question for every generation. Next week, Screwtape explains a way to aggravate the patient by convincing him that his time belongs to him, and then by stealing it moment by moment. Thanks for being here. I'll see you then.